are going to make a crispy chicken ranch wrap with some Valentine's snickerdoodles. So we're going to start up by getting our chicken ready to fry up. We'll do essentially like a classic fried chicken cutlet, and then we will make a little ranch wrap with it. So pretty yummy, simple. I'm going to get my oil in here. We're not going to start heating it up yet, but I'll just have it poured and out of my way. Just a nice little basin on there. You don't need too much since we're just frying it about halfway on each side. Put it over here. And then for our chicken, let's get our dredge made up, and then we'll fillet them and get them ready to fry up. So I've got 2 good sized cutlets here, so I'm going to use about 1.5 cups of flour for this. And then I'll slide this guy over here for when we make our snickerdoodles. And then we're going to season this up. I'm going to use some ranch seasoning in my base, as well as we're going to make a buttermilk ranch to go with this. So I'm going to add in about, I want to say like 1/4 of a cup of ranch seasoning in here to give it a nice little zing. And then we're going to add in some other spices as well. So garlic salt, got to have your garlic salt. We want about, I want to say like 1.5 teaspoons to 2 teaspoons. We want a good amount to season it up. And then we're going to use about, around a tablespoon of onion powder. And then we're going to use some Mrs. Dash's table blend. I'm going to use up the rest of this, which is about 1 teaspoon or so. So a good little amount. Let me grab my fork here. And we're going to mix in our little mountain of delicious spices for our little chicken cutlets. So we'll have kind of a nice little zesty ranch flavor to it with those, undertones of garlic and onion. Here. And then we'll add in some panko breadcrumbs during our second dredging. Get them mixed. Okay. And then since we just have 2 smaller ones, we're just going to use 3 eggs for this today. Let's slide this guy out here. So 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm just use the same one, and we're just gonna poke each yolk, and then we're gonna mix the yolks into the egg white. So we'll scramble them. That way when we dredge them, we'll have a nice kind of thick egg base to hold on our second layer of our dredge with our panko in it. Make sure you get that egg, that yolk mixed into the egg white, because you don't want to have a big snotty string of egg white. Here. And looking good. I'll get my panko ready for when we're ready to do it after our own. But let's get our chicken prepped up. We're going to keep one hand clean, one hand there. So just use one hand to kind of manipulate your chicken. We're going to fillet it in half because we want it to be a little bit thinner for these. All right. And this guy's, he's a pretty big honking one. You know what? I'm going to cut him first, and then we'll have kind of 6 little cutlets here because that one is pretty wide. And it doesn't really matter what, you could cut them smaller if you wanted to. We're going to be, after we fry it up, we'll be cutting them up into little strips to put inside our little ranch wrap. So it doesn't so much matter what they look like now. I'm going to trim off this little bit of fat here because that will just get rubbery when we cook it up. So anytime you see that, just trim it off. And then let's get this guy filleted. Always try to cut against the grain, which is going to give you a rougher cut, but it will give you a more tender piece of chicken once it's fried up and cooked. Get these guys out. Okay, done with our knife. And we're going to go into our first dredge and coat it up nicely. Really Get that on there. And this is going to bind with our egg mixture so that it creates a nice crispy crust on it. Get that all dredged up nicely. And then we'll add, after this, we'll add in our panko breadcrumbs and we'll do our second dredging for it to get you that nice crispy, crunchy layer. Here. And get this. And then we'll make our snickerdoodle cookies. With a little fun twist on it, we're going to use some decorating sugar to roll them in so they have a nice fun pop of color. It's kind of.
Can you go over what's in the dredge?
Yes. So for our dredge, we have in here, we use some ranch seasoning and then onion powder, garlic, salt, and some Mrs. Dash's table blend. So it'll have a nice kind of little zesty flavor to it on there.
And flour? And
flour, yes. And flour. Well, now we're going to add in our panko breadcrumbs. We're going to use about a cup or so. Add a nice little crunch to it. Now, if you love a super crunch to your chicken, you could actually just use panko breadcrumbs, and that will be a nice, really crunchy one. Or you can use even more panko breadcrumbs. This gives you like a middle of the road crunch, which I find is nice, and it holds on well. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take our dredged fillets into our egg mixture, make sure it's completely coated up, and then into our second coating of our dredge here. And we'll pat it down, get it to stick firmly on here. And then we'll have our first little cutlet ready. It's kind of nice. We have a slightly smaller crowd today for lunch. Both my girls are gone. And so it's kind of a smaller one. It's kind of nice every once in a while. But the boys, that's why I said, oh, we'll make a feast that I know that the boys will love. So Snickerdoodles are one of Torrance' favorite cookies. And of course, he loves a fried chicken or a fried fish, a fried anything in any shape or form. Here. And then pat this guy up, and we've got about 3 left to go. I'll start getting our oil heating up so that we can start frying them off because we're going to have to do this in 2 batches. And that way these can fry off while we start making our cookies. And then we'll make our homemade ranch and kind of put everything together up. Kind of quick and easier lunch, but still delicious. On there and over. And coat this guy up nicely. And then we have 2 to go. And get our last ones here. Pat them down.
Yo has a question for you.
What's for dinner tonight? So we're going to actually have a pretty delicious feast for dinner tonight. So in our butcher box that we had delivered, we had some New York strips. So we have 2 New York strips, which are good size, and then I have some. We've got the sea to table box, which has some jumbo Gulf shrimp in it. So we're going to have steak and shrimp, so surf and serve. And then I found these really cute heart-shaped noodles. So I'm going to do probably like some sort of pasta with it. Nice kind of, probably like a Parmesan cream one with it. And then some broccoli. And then for dessert, we're going to have strawberry shortcake for it. So pretty yummy and delicious. Okay, let's get these guys out of the way. Go wash my hands up because they're nice and breaded. And then we can start working on our cookies until our chicken is ready to go into the oil that we have heating up. You never want to drop your chicken into cold oil because it won't get a nice crispy fry on it. It will be kind of soggy and chewy instead. Okay. Just wipe up a little bit of that while we're doing it. And let's head over to our baking area. We're going to start with, these are a sourdough discard snickerdoodles, which growing up, I never used sourdough discard because I didn't know how to make sourdough bread until a couple years ago. But I will say these make the best snickerdoodle cookies on there. So we're going to whip them up and use a half a cup of discard with them. But we're going to start out with 2 sticks of butter or 1 cup of butter. Make sure it's room temperature. That way it will cream nicely into your sugars. So that last little bit. And put this guy out. Pop that right over here. And then we're going to add in a 1/3 cup of brown sugar and then 1 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. So I'm going to kind of pack this in, not quite completely fill it because this is a half a cup. So we've got our 1/3 cup here of brown sugar. A little sprinkle more in. And then we're going to do 1 1/3 cup. And that little bit of brown sugar gives you just a nice amount of richness to it. But, you know, snickerdoodles are supposed to be kind of a blonder cookie, so you don't want to use too much. But I find it's just that perfect amount that blends with the cinnamon nicely. So we've got 1 cup of sugar, and now we need about a 1/3 cup more. We're going to cream these 2 together, and then we'll add in our discard, 1 egg plus 1 yolk. Let's get this going. And then our oil should be getting close to nice and hot. Let's first make sure you've got these creamed in well. You could also do this in a stand mixer, but with the discard, it is a slightly moister cookie batter than like a chocolate chip cookie dough, so a hand mixer works well with it too. Give it a whip up. And we'll work that in there. Here. And we'll go all the way around. And again, room temperature butter works well for this. If it's too cold, it's going to take you forever to cream your sugars together.
You want to talk about the chaos of yesterday?
Yes. So yesterday was quite crazy. We had the appliance guy coming back for our to fix our oven unit, and it turned out it was just the fuse. So that was very good news. That was like the cheapest of the fixes that it could have been. So very happy with that. But of course, you know, you get like these long, huge like slot times, and they always come towards the last bit of that. So we had him over here, and then we got our washer dryer stacking unit. We got the other one taken out, and then we have it assembled. So I heated my oil up to high, and then I'm going to turn it down to a nice medium here. And then I had some family members who I hadn't seen in a very long time in town. So we had them over here for a lunch. I made my biscuit chicken pot pies and then some pumpkin muffins for them. But it was kind of a chaos doing that. And then my daughter had a soccer game last night, and we decided to pick up Whataburger and Swig for our way home because we weren't getting home until like 8:45 down there. So it was kind of a crazy, chaotic day, but I feel like order is finally being restored to my life because I've got a washer and dryer, and being out of a washer and dryer with a family of 7 is like a nightmare. I've got a lot of laundry to catch up on. But and then having my wall microwave oven unit is so nice to have that back. I used it yesterday to cook our muffins and our biscuit pot pie, so I was very happy with that. So it's working. You know, you everything you're like, please don't mess up, please continue. You've got a little bit of that there, but here. And then last night I was up late getting the kids little Valentine's, you know, surprises together. So I have a couple of them, I guess, hiding right here, but the kids always get every year, they get like a little toy or an outfit, and then they have these candy hearts that are filled with like little treats. We'll see how much of it there, but they've got like little holiday treats in there, little Valentine's Day things for them, little candy hearts. So they have those when they woke up. They got, you know, little Nike sweatshirts in like red and pink, you know, for all the kids. So had to get that. The little ones, Teddy got like a red dinosaur and Jack got a red truck to play with. But I always have to do very themed things. We added in a half a cup of sourdough discard. We're going to cream that into the butters and the sugars here, or the butter and the sugars. I only got one type of butter in here. Oh, thank you, Rondia. We appreciate that. Here we go. Got a nice, good creamed base. And now for this, we're going to add in our eggs. We're going to use 1 egg plus 1 yolk. And that's simply because if you use 2 full eggs, it makes it a little bit too runny in this batter. And so that extra yolk gives you the richness for this, but it kind of lessens down the liquidity, I guess, of it. So I'll separate this, and we'll use just that yolk. Get that in there, and we'll kind of get those creaming together. Give a quick flip of our chicken here real quick before we cream that in there. Grab a spatula, my second one. Beautiful. And flip this guy over. Perfect. I'll let those sit and fry up here. And now let's cream these guys in here. So our 1 egg plus 1 yolk, which we have right now in here with 1 cup of butter, 1 1/3 cups of granulated sugar, and 1/3 cup of brown sugar. There. Mix that in there well. I'm going to put Jacques, the top on Jacques, and put him back over here before I break him. And then we're going to add in our vanilla, baking soda, cinnamon, cream of tartar, and a little bit of salt for our next round.
And sourdough discard in there?
Yes, a half a cup of sourdough discard. So that gives just like a great texture and makes these cookies so wonderful. We're going to add in 1 teaspoon of baking soda. We're going to do 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Now we will use some cinnamon later when we roll the cookies in it, but I put 2 teaspoons in my dough as well. So 1, 2. And then we're going to use 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar. That cream of tartar is going to act as a lovely, like, holds it together well, a nice little binder for it so that it doesn't run. And it gives the Snickerdoodles their unique kind of flavor to it. So we need 2 teaspoons. 1. And do I have enough in here? I made a bunch of homemade Play-Doh the other day for the kids' Valentine's Day gifts, and I used cream of tartar to make in my homemade Play-Doh.
Do you have the recipe posted anywhere for these Snickerdoodles?
I do have the recipe posted. I know for our members, although it might have been a freebie that we gave out at one point in time, but I'm not 100% sure. But we definitely have the videos available. Our live video, we'll post this one so you can always rewatch it. I've made this a couple of times, but I do have that recipe card out there. I know that for our members. So 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar. Sometimes cream of tartar goes by alum, so you'll have to see what they have at your grocery store. And then we're going to use our salt. We're going to use a half a teaspoon of salt, or not half a teaspoon, a teaspoon of salt. And then we're going to use our vanilla. we're going to use a whole tablespoon of vanilla extract. It's going to give it a wonderful flavor. That being said, I'm running low on vanilla. Make sure I order some more. Okay. Let's get these creamed in here, mix them up well, and then we will add in our flour. There we go. Perfect. And then we're going to add in 2.5 cups of flour. And I will say this makes a lot of cookies, but I do make my cookies a little bit smaller, so these aren't jumbo cookies, but it makes about 50 cookies. So 1, 2, and 1/2 cups of flour. Slide this. Let me check my chicken real quick before we mix it. See how it's cooking up. Looking good. Looking beautiful. These are just about ready. Perfect. We'll blend this up and then we'll take those out for that next round.
Do you use all-purpose flour for the cookies?
Yes, all-purpose flour. Bread flour would be too heavy, and we already put baking soda in it, so self-rising flour would give too much of a pop. We'll mix this in here. Now this dough, once you have it completely mixed together, is going to have a little bit of a tack to it, but it shouldn't be so much that you can't work with it. But you do not have to chill it, which is a nice thing. It's a cookie that you can make right away. There we go. Get these guys out. Steal a little bit. So good. And then before we get them rolling out, let me get a baking sheet out so we can put our chicken on it to let it rest. And we can drop our next one in. Let's get some paper towels. Now, when I take the chicken out, anytime I fry something, you can either rest it on, I like paper towels because it sucks up that extra grease, or you can also put it on like a cookie cooling rack. Nice, beautiful. And we've got our first round of our chicken out. We'll drop our last round in, and then we can get our cookies going. And filleting these pieces of chicken nice and thin allows them to cook up nice and, evenly. And then always fry. I fry mine over about a 4, so nice and low temperature.
You have a question? Could you substitute 1/2 cup of bloomed active yeast for the cookie?
I don't know. I've never done that before, so I couldn't actually tell you. Let's slide this guy in here. Since we're done. And slide that over here so it doesn't fall. And while those are frying up, let's get our cookies about ready. I'm going to get a bowl or get 2 bowls out here to roll our cookie dough in, and then we can put them on our baking sheets. So what kind of makes these cookies really cool is what we're going to do is we are going to use some decorating sugar to add a nice pop of color to it. We'll mix this with some cinnamon and some regular sugar as well. It also, I find, gives the cookies a, depending on how fine your decorating sugar is, will give it a nice little, wonderful crunch on it. We don't need a snowflake one. So I've got pink and red. because it's Valentine's Day and you want a little bit of fun. And we'll just mix it with a little bit of regular sugar and then a little bit of cinnamon. And you don't need much, but regular sugar is a little bit finer, so it just kind of brings up those little ones. It's my new washer and dryer combo, letting me know. We've been, you know how it took us a minute to figure out how to get this thing working there because it was not as intuitive and took us a minute. The directions could use a little improving on there, but once we figured it out, it has been going great with our washer and dryer, I'll say. We got like one of those stacking, like the tall units. We're gonna add in a teaspoon of cinnamon to each one of these. If you were gonna just do one color, you would do 2 teaspoons to get that, but since we've got double, kind of dividing it. And then just give them kind of a good shake and a mix around to make sure it gets in there. But it will give you a really pretty pop of color on your snickerdoodle without changing the flavor or anything. There we go.
Angel likes the one braid today.
Oh yes, I was been around busy trying to get my house back in order. And when I'm working out and when I'm like really on the move, I will do 2 or 1 braid because I don't want my hair in my face on there. So, and I just never made it out of that on there. But after a while, I get like to where I'm like, okay, I need to put it back down because I like the hang of 2 braids that feel a little bit better. Okay, we're gonna take our cookie dough here. Just a little ball like this. And then you're gonna just roll it through your sugar. Just like that. And we'll put it on here. Now again, the cookies have a slight little tack, but they're not going to be super, super like sticky. Now they do spread out, so you don't want to put them super close to each other. I'll probably just do 4 rows of 3 because I'm using my smaller sheet pan right now. And then we'll do a little bit in the pink. Now at Christmas we did, you know, red and green, and those colors popped out. I'll be interested to see. I know the red's going to turn out well. I've never done it with the light pink before. A lot of times I'll do it with red and purple. So I'll be interested to see how well the light pink color pops with it. But it's just a fun way to jazz these up. I totally put in the wrong one. And there we go. Now, sometimes I have these in cinnamon, but a lot of times during the fall when, you know, pumpkin spice is having its, you know, moment of fame, I'll roll them in pumpkin spice just to change it up, and I'll sub out the cinnamon to pumpkin spice in it, change it up, and it's lovely. Here. Get these last ones for our first batch going in.
And if you get a moment, can you go over the ingredients?
Yes. So these are my sourdough snickerdoodle cookies. So we started off with a cup of butter, and then we creamed in 1 1/3 cup of sugar, and then a 1/3 cup of brown sugar. And then we added in a 1/2 cup of sourdough discard, creamed all those together. Then 1 egg and 1 yolk, a tablespoon of vanilla, then a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar, and a teaspoon of baking soda. Cream that all together. And then we did 2.5 cups of flour. And now what we'll do is we're rolling them in decorating sugar with a little bit of regular sugar and cinnamon in there to give it the nice cinnamon flavor, but the fun pop of color for Valentine's Day. And There we go. Let me give my hands a quick rinse. And then we'll pop these in the oven. These are going to bake at 400 degrees for about 8 or so minutes. You know, sometimes they can take, depending if you go bigger, they'll take longer. So sometimes I'll make larger ones and they take 9 minutes, but these are going to take 8 minutes because they're my smaller size. Top rack. Over here, I'll set my timer for 8 minutes. And then we'll come back over here and we'll grab them out in just a second. And we'll make a second round, but let's get our chicken going or flipped over because I think we might be getting close to have it on the second side.
Well,
thank you, Paula. We appreciate that. Nice, beautiful golden brown. Let's see how we are here. That one needs a little bit longer. A little bit longer. I'm going to rotate my pan because, again, that's my hotter side up there. And while we're doing that, let's make our buttermilk ranch, and then we can get our salad going for our chicken ranch wraps on here. Okay, so I've got buttermilk. I rarely have buttermilk, but if you don't have buttermilk, you can use regular milk with a squeeze of lemon juice and a little bit of cream in it to give you that nice rich flavor for it. We're gonna do half and half mayo to buttermilk. So I'm going to do a half a cup of mayo with a half a cup of buttermilk. Get that in here. I'm going to push it down. That should be good. And then a half a cup of our buttermilk because who doesn't love a good buttermilk ranch? And then what we're going to use is about 2 tablespoons of ranch powder, or you could use a packet of ranch powder. And we'll mix it up and we'll let it sit. Pretty simple, pretty easy. A little shake more. There we go. And this should give us a nice thick ranch, which I like to use when I'm making a chicken ranch wrap. I like it to be a lot thicker so that it's not too runny in the salad, like in the wrap. Now it will thicken up a little bit more, but as you can see, we've got a nice thickness to it. But once the sauce or the powder kind of hits the milk base, it will thicken up just a smidge more. Here we go. Perfect. And again, in our seasoning for our chicken, we have our ranch as well. So we have, a mixture of our ranch powder with onion powder and some garlic salt and Mrs. Dash's table blend. Get this. I'm going to flip this way. There we go. Get these guys crisping up nicely. Okay, let's whip up our salad here. And then once our chicken is cooked up, we can cut it up and we're going to put them in our wraps that we'll toast up on our skillet. And these are like jumbo wraps, but it makes it a little bit easier to wrapping up, I will say. Especially if you're like me and you like to really stuff them. Okay. We're going to start with a bag of lettuce. You can also use just a head of lettuce on here, but I've had this on there, so we'll get this in here. Apparently, I did not pop this open. There we go. I like to use a nice crispy romaine, or you could even do iceberg lettuce. I will say for a ranch wrap, a crunchy ranch wrap, you don't really want to use a spring mix because it just doesn't give you that crunch that you want. On here, there we go. And break apart any of those bigger pieces. And then we're going to add in some red onion, which will add a nice little zing to it. Take off both sides. Kind of peel this whole outer shell since I want to make some longer strings in there for it. Now I always use my red onions for like my, on my sandwiches, dips, condiments. Red onions are not great for cooking with. They lose their flavor and their texture when you actually cook them up. So they're much better eaten raw.
They're better than nothing.
Yes, I will say there are times where I do not have a regular onion and I will use a red onion because it will give me the flavor. It won't be the best, but if that's all you have, that works as well. Throw these in here, some kind of longer ones, so you have a nice little crunch in there. And then we'll throw in some, well, I'm going to put some cherry tomatoes, but I'm going to keep them on the side because not everybody shares my and Evie's love of cherry tomatoes. But the tomatoes with the ranch, so good. Like I said, I think Evie got my love for salads and ranch because of me. But get this on here. We'll check out our fried chicken here in just a second. Let's see how we're cooking. Still needs a little bit more time, but looking great on it. Perfect. And we'll get these here. Perfect. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to check my timer on. Got 2 minutes left. Perfect kind of timing.
Do all your children like onions?
You know what? They are all definitely on there. When they were younger, they didn't love them as much, but now, like, they are, I will say my older ones love them. They add the flavor on there. Sometimes they don't love it if I leave them whole big ones, but in here, they like that crunch and that mildness to it, so it works really, really well for it on there. Okay. Well, since we're waiting, we can work on that because this chicken's ready. We need to wait and chop it up in there. But we can get our second round of cookies kind of rolled up here and in here going. Because like I said, this makes a good batch of cookies on there. So we'll get these rolling there and then hopefully we'll have them rolled out by the time we need to take our other ones out of the oven, since that should be ready in about a minute. We'll see if we can do lightning speed rolling. And you can also you don't have to do the decorating sugar. You can do regular sugar for it. But always fun to make a pop, thing. I will say, decorating sugar works well. Sprinkles does not. Sprinkles do not like dissolve like regular like decorating sugar does. And so you will have just a sprinkle base on there. And if you're okay with sprinkle textures, it kind of works. But this just mimics the exact same thing as if it's regular sugar.
Are you making dinner tonight? And if so, what?
I am making dinner tonight because my son's basketball game ended up getting canceled or, well, postponed because I think they realized, maybe we shouldn't do a basketball game at 7 o'clock, an hour away on Valentine's Day. They said they had a shortage of refs, and I can imagine. But we are going to do it. I've set out 2 New York strips from our butcher box and then some jumbo Gulf shrimp. So we're going to kind of do a surf and turf. And then I found this really cute Valentine's Day pasta. They're just little hearts. So I'm probably going to do like a creamy butter pasta with that because that's what my kids absolutely love. Let me rinse my hands real quick and we'll go get those cookies out of the oven. And then our chicken should hopefully be just about ready. So these are our sourdough snickerdoodles that are about to come out. Oh, let me push this. And look at our beautiful cookies. The pink are actually very darling. They're very cute. The red definitely has that pop of color, but they are really, really cute. Now you need to let them sit on your baking sheet for at least 5 minutes for that butter and that egg to set. If you try to move them off right now, they will just fall apart and they will be rock hard or like liquid hot lava. So make sure they sit there. These cookies are a softer type cookie. So they're not like a super crunchy cookie. Think about, how Snickerdoodles, that sourdough in it gives it a little bit of that kind of cakey, battery type cookie to it, but they're still chewy and delicious. We're going to take these out in like 30 seconds or so on there. There, I just gave a quick peek at it, but we'll finish rolling these next cookies out, and then we can get our chicken ready to go into our wrap and get our wraps designed up. So let's get this rolled up. And there. Get our pink ones in. And purple, I will say, I was all out of my purple decorating or sugar, but purple makes a really pretty one as well. And it's funny because the cinnamon, you don't really see that cinnamon pop through on there, but it works very, very well. Okay, I'm gonna go, let me wash my hands. We'll pop this in the oven for 8 minutes. And then we'll take our chicken out because our chicken is just about ready here. And I like to bake my cookies just really on the top rack whenever possible. Now, sometimes when I have, like a cookie bake-a-thon going, then I'll use the bottom one, but I'm a big fan. The top rack always bakes them the best. So 8 minutes at 400 degrees. And let's get this second round of chicken out and we'll get ready for our wrap. I'm gonna actually start toasting up my skillet here. Get it nice and warm so that when we're ready for it, we'll be there. I'm going to pull, because I'm going to start chopping these guys off in just a second to add in there. I'll pull these off. We're going to put these ones in there so they can just sit and cool down for a second. But nice, beautiful, golden, crispy edge. Make sure you try to put it oil side down. That way it absorbs that up and leaves it nice and crispy. There we go. We'll let that sit and cool for a second. And while we do that, I'm going to move this oil right out of the way so that I have a little bit more elbow room. Pop this right over here. Okay, for our first round of chicken, I'm going to just chop these up. Long little bits in here for it. You got to pay the piper. Can't even wait. I will say you can keep them long strips. I'll probably turn this off. They're good, delicious, perfect. Get the nice zest from the ranch. Perfect. So I like to kind of cut them into little bite-sized pieces because if you leave them in the long strips when you're eating your wrap, it's kind of difficult to eat. So we'll slice them up here. And then I just do a long cut through so that you have, again, just nicer bite-sized pieces. There we go. We'll get that going. Let's toss our salad with our buttermilk ranch that we made up. And then we'll build up our wrap to kind of go there. I'm going to put some in here. I'll grab some tongs. I like to save some on the side because sometimes I love ranch. And so I like to dip my crispy ranch wrap in ranch because you can never have enough ranch. So let's toss this up. You want a good amount that it's coating it, but it's not, dripping soggy wet, which is why I like a nice thick one. And then what I'm going to do, because you're going to want to make sure that your lettuce is small, I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to chop up over it because if you leave some of those bigger, even though it's chopped, if you leave them bigger, what you'll do is you'll be biting and then you'll still pull out a whole huge leaf. So chop it up a little bit. I like to kind of chop it up once I have that dressing in there because it clings a little bit easier. And it's funny. This is how I'd always chop up salad for my little ones in there. I'd make it and then I just go in their bowl with this. I'll say we started them young. They were eating salads when they were, 1 year old and they loved them. They love the ranch, I will tell you. That's what it is. And then they get older, they use less and less dressing. But sometimes you need that vessel to get them to eat the veggies. And I'm all for it. There we go. Now we've got our good chopped up parts of this that we are ready to assemble our wraps for this. So I've got this jumbo, ginormous one here. Let me grab another cutting board. Make it a little bit easier so I have a nice bit of room. And what we're going to do is we're going to spread butter on one side of our wrap, and then we will get them kind of, that way it will crisp up nicely. And then in a few minutes, we'll grab our cookies out. I think we still have about 3 or 4 minutes on them. Here. And spread it. Nice thin layer just on the outside. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to pick a corner that you want to kind of be your base corner. And I like to do a little bit of ranch or salad first. Then we'll put our chicken on, and then we'll top it with a little bit of salad. And that just makes it kind of perfect. We've got our chunk of chicken in here. So you've got a good amount. And then we'll add just a little bit more on top. And then what we'll do is we're going to tuck it up and wrap it up, just like we would a nice little burrito here. And then we're going to put them on our skillet, which I have warming up already. So we'll do our next one. Now my next one I'm going to put my tomatoes in for me, because tomatoes are wonderful. And what I'll do is I'll do kind of the same way. Put my salad base down. We're going to sprinkle the tomatoes across. And you could also throw in cheese in here as well if you want to. Get our chicken. Muy, muy delicious. Kind of fold it up. Tuck those sides in. Oh, you know what I forgot to put on top?
Butter.
No, I buttered. No, I didn't butter it, did I? We'll butter on the outside. You know what? That is my brain. It's cuckoo. Just making it a little bit healthier. We'll lather it up. Here we go. All else fails. Little. Gotta butter it. And I will say the butter crisps it up nicely. And we'll let this kind of cook up. I have it kind of cooking over a medium temperature, not too high, but just enough to crisp up those outside bases. And let me wash my hands since they're buttery now. And really for this, you're just toasting up and crisping up that wrap on the outside so it has that nice crunch to it. There's nothing in there that you need to melt up, which is nice. And then let me grab our spatula here for this. Turn this up just a smidge. And we'll get it on here, and then we'll have our first round of our little snack wraps nice and ready. And I will say, and it's nice because, you know, the kids, some will do light on the lettuce. My old Evie, hers is like so much lettuce and tomatoes and whatnot. But you can kind of fill them up and make them the way that they are, you know, designed to be, like for each person. You know, for my husband, it's like 1 leaf of lettuce.
I prefer 0.
He prefers 0, but he needs to have a little bit of greenery. Perfect. Nice little toast. That one's toasting up nicely. Let's go grab our second round of cookies out of the oven. See if I can grab another trivet over here. Push that off. And again, they baked up at 400 degrees for 8 minutes. And happy, pretty little Valentine's cookies with that little pop of red and pink. And these, I will say, they are so delicious. All of my kids love them. And I feel like Snickerdoodles are a cookie that you don't see very often. Like, They're, chocolate chip is everywhere. Oatmeal is everywhere, but snickerdoodles aren't as common, but they are so delicious. See if this guy's just about ready to flip over. That one's almost done. Check this. Hold it up. And then we'll get ready to serve up here. I'm going to see if our cookies, I think, are, look at that, beautiful on the bottom. There's that one, the red ones, you'll see it will have that nice little red sprinkle on it. But just giving them a sense attack, but they, when they cool, they're a little bit more chewy than when you have them right out of the oven, they puff down, and that gives you just that wonderful, delicious kind of base to it. So we're just about ready with these guys. Tuck that one in there. Beautiful. So I've got our first guy, and then we'll have this one off in just a second here, getting that last little crisp up, but I'm going to get a plate. And we'll be ready to serve these guys up here. And once your skillet's nice and hot, you really don't need to do too much on there with it. Okay, let's get this on. For our lunch today, we have our crispy chicken and ranch wrap with our homemade buttermilk ranch dressing, hand breaded fried chicken with a ranch base to it on there. So our chicken, which before we cut it up and add it in there, delicious, chopped up in there. And then tossed with a nice simple romaine lettuce salad inside a wrap. And then for a little sweet treat, we've got our sourdough snickerdoodles in our Valentine's Day color. We just rolled them in our decorating sugar for that little pop of color, but that nice, lovely base of cinnamon in there, and that kind of tartness that snickerdoodles have just make for the perfect little treat today. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on the page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. And you can always watch and cook along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my hex plaid griddle pan, my hand mixers, everything I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.